close to the end of our programming here with our lovely partner DAIS. And we'll be talking about the intersection between blockchain and AI. Not a lot of people realize that the role of blockchain is essential in making AI more trustworthy. And we have the honor here of being joined by Dr. Leeman Baird, who is the inventor of Hashgraph. He's a co-founder of Hedera and Hashgraph and the chief scientist. So welcome. I just wanted to say, do you want to sit, stand, whatever?
Whatever you want to do is fine with me.
Just wanted to reintroduce.
Sure.
So welcome, Leeman.
Well, thank you.
Just wanted to start with, how did you start on your journey to get to where you are, and how did you start Hashgraph?
Oh, okay. So I started with AI, actually. I started in AI. My PhD was in AI. I was a university or college professor at the Air Force Academy teaching AI and cryptography and other fun things. So I really got my start in AI. It was reinforcement learning with deep neural networks, lots of things we hear about today. And then in 2012, I like to do math problems for fun. So in 2012, I think everyone in the audience has heard these stories before. But in 2012, I started on a math problem. And in 2015, I figured out, hey, you could actually do consensus that was ABFT, super secure and super fast. And so then Mance and I started Swirlds to show it off, to prove it as a private ledger, and then Hedera to prove it as a public ledger.
Fantastic. What an incredible journey, and everything that you have built and the progress that you've made. Wanted to hear your perspective. What is the role of blockchain, tokenization, in particular tokenization of real-world assets, to advance better and more trustworthy AI?
All right, that's lots of topics. So RWA, real-world asset tokenization, is the future. I think everything of value in this world will end up being tokenized. Just because it's faster and cheaper and more efficient and more secure, eliminates the middleman. There's just so many reasons. Ultimately, everything of value will be tokenized. That will include things like access to AI training and things like that too. So there's that intersection in that sense. But there's also a much deeper intersection. AI right now has an enormous promise. And anything that's extremely powerful, of course, also has dangers. And one of the dangers is, where does your data come from that you're training the AI on? So we need to know, is the data biased? Is that going to give you an AI that's biased? Is the data infringing on IP? What does it even mean to infringe on IP? That's also something that needs to be decided, what that means in AI training. I think that what we're going to end up wanting to have is many different agents, many different models, many different things trained, but each of them has its own pedigree. It has its own provenance. It has its own history. And it may not just be a training set. It may be a training set that created this AI model, which was then used and helped with more training data to create a second model. You have a whole chain of them, or a whole tree of them. So we need to be keeping track of this provenance. And what people like Equity Lab are doing is doing this on Hedera. And so you can use tokens, or you can use the HCS system, the Hedera Consensus Service, that just allows you to store anything on Hedera, and you can keep track of the provenance and track that on these AIs. And you can keep track of people giving permission to use their data. And then you can do automatic micropayments of crypto to those people. All of those things need blockchain. So the intersection of AI and blockchain, I think, is pretty fundamental, because the fundamental thing we need from AI is trust. That's what we need.
Exactly. And we just were on a previous panel just now where someone mentioned that they had developed their own digital twin who was acting on behalf of them to do automated tasks while humans do human things. How do we make sure that our AI agents are actually acting on our behalf and not on behalf of sovereign governments or corporates or other external organizations that are not us?
Exactly. So this is the big question, right? And the way you do this is you have AI that is value aligned and that is audited in various ways and tested in various ways. But value aligned to whose values? We have 8 billion different people with 8 billion different value systems on this planet. And so what you need is to be able to have lots of organizations creating AIs that maybe takes multi-billion-dollar machines. Hopefully you're running the inference locally, so that you're not sending your data anywhere. We may take a little while to get there, but we're getting there. Little tiny devices that are a petaflop don't hurt. I mean, we just saw NVIDIA announce that. And then you need to have all of this auditing going on. And so on the blockchain, on Hedera, you can store information about the auditing. You can have tokenization of credentialing. You can have then the data being audited. You can also have the whole workflow being audited, everything around the AI being audited. So the only way you can trust this thing, this ones and zeros inside a box that you can't look inside of, is if other people have proved it and audited it and tested it, and the chips that did the learning actually do the certification of it.
Some sort of validation and trust, and it makes me think of I've like other conversations about ethics. How do you define ethics when there's so many people, like you're saying, in the world, and where do we get to a participatory process for ethics? And ultimately, that points to, in a way, the role of lack of regulation or regulation thereof. How do we create the right policies, the right regulations, and the right standards, rules of the game, in order for this to be done right?
Yes. So we don't want regulations that say, let's find the one true value system and make sure it matches that. Everyone has different opinions on that. Even things like, can it use bad words or not? Well, different people differ on that. So what we need to have is many of them. The regulations should always be about fraud and being honest. So they should be saying, if you claim it has been certified, it must have actually been certified.
It's kind of a universal topic, right? You should say, deliver on what you promise.
Well, yes, it is.
Do what you say.
But what I'm saying is that this is the route that regulation should be going, as opposed to saying in detail which exact tests it needs to have followed. There can be some standards like the FDA has, but honestly, I think we're going to want to have several groups of standards, and the important thing is that the consumer knows what they're getting into. Not that we have a nanny that has picked what they should have.
Some sort of informed consent?
Informed consent. And we have 5 minutes. I would love to talk longer. You probably have more questions.
No, but also my next question, somewhat related to regulation, it has to do with the data. And you've alluded to this before. We have so many topics that we're trying to condense in a short time. But how do we also make sure that the data that individuals provide to their AI agents or to any AI algorithm is kept secure and private?
The answer to that is local inference. So what you want is big $10 billion computers building the AI, but then when you run it locally. Now, if you can't afford that, we, for a while, may have to have servers out there run by people you trust, and you give them all your most private data in the world and hope they do the right thing with it. Okay, if that's the best you can do, that's the best you can do. But we've got to get to the point where it's local.
So I am just fascinated by the depth of your knowledge and the passion of what you're working on. It's really cool to talk to someone like you. Just leading to my next question, what are the major opportunities that you see at the intersection of blockchain, tokenization, and AI being disrupted and transformed today, where humanity is going?
This has so much potential to make the world better. You know, we talk about the dangers, but I think we can build it to be trustworthy. If we do the things we've said, using blockchain to keep track of the data and the training and all the certifications, all the other things, then we can have a world where everyone has their own personal AIs taking care of them and doing things on your behalf, and even buying and selling things on your behalf if you trust it enough, or if you put in place various, we haven't even gone into that, but there's various things you can do to watch the AI, and the thing watching the AI is not an AI. There's all sorts of things you can do with that. But look at what it is. It's like everyone on Earth is now a trillionaire. You have a humanoid robot that does everything around the house. You have AIs that buy and sell and do things for you. We could end up in a very, very good world. Let's do that.
If we do this right, with the right rules in place, with the right safeguards in place, with the right regulations in place, and I see the AI 2030 guy, Ben, nodding in the back, how do we make sure that everyone can have access to this equally so that it doesn't increase the digital divide, for example, where we live in a world where so many billions of people don't even have internet?
Yes.
So how do you address that?
Yes. So to start with, how do we get people banked? How do we get people with IDs?
Yes.
And the answer for that is blockchain. It honestly is. Reaching the billion unbanked people you use, and we have people on the council doing this. We have other people doing this, using blockchain to reach them. How do you do identity? Well, we need decentralized identity, which again is going back to those same people. Then we can say, well, we need to give them better phones and better AI things. You know what we need to do is lower the price of producing everything. Hey, AI can make the price of producing everything vastly cheaper. We could go to a world where we don't have a huge divide and everybody is happy. Or we could go to the opposite. We really need to make sure we go to the good world, not the bad world, in where we're headed.
Well, thank you so much. And finally, what are you most excited about for 2025? There's many, many things.
I'm so excited about 2025. So, like just announced, NVIDIA doing a deal with Intel and Equity Lab to, while you're doing the training, have the chip itself be digitally signing off on this is exactly the data I used. These sorts of things on Hedera right now. Hedera has a million things like this going on, and I'm very, very excited on the way these things are now deployed and just going to grow over this year, and even more things coming this year. I'm really excited about those things.
Fantastic. Unfortunately, we are out of time. If you have questions for Dr. Lehman-Baird, I'm sure he'll be available to take them in the hallway or in the back. But what a pleasure, what an honor, and let's keep moving on with our conversations.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.